In this video, I will go through what a good product owner does on a typical day, because let's not kid ourselves, a lot of people still believe to this day that a full-time product owner assigned to a single Scrum team is not required. It's not a full-time job. The most common reason why this question gets asked is either because people don't understand, they don't have a shared understanding in the organization of the role of a product owner, or they don't even understand the Scrum framework. I'm talking about Scrum. What does the Scrum Guide say? The Scrum Guide 2020, the latest version of the Scrum Guide, say about the role of a product owner. Let's have a look. The product owner is accountable for maximizing the value of a product resulting from the work of a Scrum team. How this is done may vary widely across organizations, Scrum teams, and individuals. The product owner is also accountable for effective product backlog management, which includes developing and explicitly communicating the product goal, creating and clearly communicating product backlog items, ordering product backlog items, and ensuring the product backlog is transparent, visible, and understood. With all this in mind, let's go through the typical day of Grace, who I consider to be a good product owner. Grace, like most product owners, starts her day with a daily Scrum, let's say 9 a.m. For those who don't know, the daily Scrum is an event of a Scrum framework. It's a daily planning activity. The team uses it, especially the developers. It's a meeting for the developers by the developers. Grace is optional in this meeting or session. She doesn't need to attend, but it's always good to support the team, so she attends the meeting every single day. The goal of this meeting is to build a plan together. All the developers build a plan together. How can we together as a team get closer to the sprint goal? There's many ways to do the daily Scrum. Some people like answering the classic 3 questions. What did I do yesterday to get closer to the sprint goal? What will I do today to get closer to the sprint goal? Any impediments, anything blocking me, preventing me from achieving my goal for the day? The role of Grace in this session is to support, is to serve the developers, ask questions to refocus them, ensure that they are going into the right direction, moving closer to the sprint goal, guide them, answer questions with regards to user stories, tasks, the product backlog, maybe some prioritization questions, maybe some refinement questions. She's not here to tell people what to do, supervise people. People shouldn't be reporting to the product owner. No, she's here to serve them. How can we work together today to get closer to progress towards the sprint goal? Just after the daily Scrum, Grace usually joins other calls with the developers. Maybe we couldn't talk about everything in the daily Scrum. Some issues were identified, raised, impediments were raised, questions were asked, but we couldn't deep dive. Now is the time to deep dive. Again, Grace is trying here to unblock situations, answer questions with regards to the product, help them resolve impediments. We need to progress towards the sprint goal. We are here to maximize value. That's one of the main roles of Grace, maximize value. Really help the team progress towards the sprint goal. The second thing that she usually does during this time, maybe 30 minutes, 45 minutes, is talk with stakeholders. Give updates to stakeholders. Collect feedback from stakeholders. And this usually results in updating the product backlog, refining the stories, writing the stories. The third thing she uses this time for is to have a look at the Scrum board. Are things pending at a level? Does she need to reply to some comments? Are things assigned to her? Are user stories being developed? Meeting the acceptance criteria. She uses this time to check all the things, ensure that nothing is pending at a level so that the team can progress. And next, at around 10:15, 10:30, one of the major things. She uses this time to do one of the major things that she needs to do in this sprint. Prepare for future sprints. And she does backlog refinement or backlog grooming. Have a chat with the developers again. Go through all the user stories, upcoming user stories. Ask questions, answer questions, help them get these stories to ready. Help them get enough information, clear information, so that they can estimate the stories, so that they can develop the stories. This takes a lot of time, and she ensures that she plans a sprint, so that she has time to backlog refine, so that she's never late in terms of ready stories. Maybe 1 sprint or 2 sprints ahead in terms of ready stories, so that there's always work, priority items that the team can just pick and start working on. Grace usually spends 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. working on big picture stuff, short-term, medium-term, long-term strategy, talking with the stakeholders, meeting customers, talking with customers. She needs to ensure that in her mind, we are going into the right direction so that the team can also go into the right direction. This is the main role of a product owner: maximize value, ensure that the team, the capacity of the team, the skills, the knowledge of the team are going to the right things. Pretty hard to do, and she does that by doing market research, talking with customers, taking the customers, the stakeholders, or anyone else out for lunch. It's all part of work. It's all part of building the strategy and showing that she's going into the right direction. And usually she ends up updating the product backlog or the priority in the product backlog. Grace understands the importance of transparency, keeping the stakeholders informed or the customers informed. If this is the case, maybe not all scenarios that our organization talk directly to the customers, but at least your stakeholders, your sponsors should be continuously involved in the process, in the development process. They should be aware of a vision, of a roadmap, of a next release, and she uses this time to talk about all this big picture stuff. Are we gonna release in 1 month or 1 week? What's the pros and cons? What's the marketing strategy? How can we get more customers? What are the new ideas we can be working on? Stakeholder management, ensuring that the stakeholders don't disturb the team, don't talk directly to the team, because the team already knows what to work on. They can't be distracted. They need to focus to achieve the sprint goal in the sprint. She uses this time to go in all these meetings. Does all the stakeholder management. It doesn't need to be formal meetings. No, it can be by chat, by phone call, at the coffee area, talking with stakeholders, everyone, their customers, especially important. And she uses this time to do it. What she's trying to do here is not make all the decisions for the team. No, is to get information so that she can bring that back to the team and make decisions together. But the key thing, the key takeaway here is transparency. Being transparent with the stakeholders and ensuring that we are all on the same page, going into the same direction together. At 2 p.m. for around 30 minutes every single day, she talks with a Scrum Master to get an update on the team in terms of impediments. Blockers, are we progressing towards the sprint goal? But she can also use this session to get some coaching, some teaching, some mentoring, all the things that she worked on in the morning in terms of a short-term strategy, long-term strategy, the vision, the business strategy, feedback from stakeholders. She talks about that with the Scrum Master, and the Scrum Master is here to guide her, not tell her what to do. No, obviously not, but ask powerful questions. A good Scrum Master would do that, ensure that in her mind she's going into the right direction. Does she need help to write user stories, acceptance criteria, anything bothering her about the team? This session is used every single day to talk about that. From 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. she usually spends this time to work on the product backlog, on product backlog items. She did refinement in the morning, but for user stories that were already wrote. But now it's time to write some user stories. That takes a lot of time with all the information that she got in the morning for several days in the past. She takes everything together, all the decisions made with the team. She starts writing user stories, explaining why we are doing it, what we are doing, not how. The business side of things is the product owner, but how to do it, that's for developers. We can talk about that in refinement. She doesn't care about that, but why? Why we are doing it? What's the business value? What are we trying to do? From a customer's perspective, what does the customer want to see? That's how she writes user stories, writes acceptance criteria, and then maybe tomorrow or a few days she will refine these stories together with the developers. But that's one of the major things that the product owner does during the day, always ensuring that we are up to date on user stories, that the user stories are clear. Prioritize, the backlog is prioritized, and we always have user stories ready so that the developers can pick up, prioritize user stories at any time. She usually finishes her day checking in with the team. Again, it's not like she's not talking with the developers during the day. No, she's continuously talking with the developers during the day, but with the whole team now, checking in. What was the goal for the day? Did we achieve the goal for the day? Are we progressing towards the sprint goal? Any major impediments, blockers that we need to tackle now, that we can't wait for the next daily scrum, that we need to work on right now, making decisions in terms of priority. Maybe your user story needs to be changed. The requirements needs to be changed because it's hard to do. We can't achieve a sprint goal if we keep this user story like that. Maybe we need to remove some things from the user story. Maybe we need to reshuffle some priorities in the product backlog, in the sprint backlog. All these decisions the product owner makes every single day. There's always things changing. In software development, things are continuously changing. Change is constant, and she needs to be able to react, always be available to make these kinds of decisions. Fast for all of a product owner, and this was the day of grace. And the next day, same thing. Every single day, daily scrum, 9 a.m., and she mostly does the same thing. Obviously, meetings are different, stakeholders are different. She goes for lunch with other people. But the general premise here is that she's trying to maximize value. How can we ensure that the developers are working on the right thing? Get feedback, be transparent with the stakeholders, and ensure that the product backlog is always up to date, very clear, and prioritized. Which brings me to my next point. If you want more tips, insights on Agile Scrum personal growth, click on the video that stands out the most on the screen right now, and I'll see you in a few seconds.